Yo, what's up guys, Toby from the MasterBok Show, and I hope you're having an amazing day. I was really inspired about the alchemist build that I designed for you guys a few days ago, and I was thinking of making the most powerful throw barbarian that it can be. A character that can both control its environment and can dish out amazing damage to its opponent, and not to mention attack multiple times in a single turn. If you want to become one of the most powerful barbarians in the game, controlling your environments to your advantage, can solo any fight that you want, or just become a powerhouse for your team, this is gonna be the build for you. I'm talking about the Barbarian and the Druid multi-class and my version of the Lightning Barb. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, here we are now guys in our character creation screen. This is where we will be building the foundation of our Lightning Barb. For today's build, we are eyeing on two races that are interesting for today, which is the Elf and the Half-Elf. Basically, the two races have the same race features such as base racial speed, which gives us move speed of 9 meters, dark vision, and Fey ancestry, which gives us advantages in saving throws, charmed, and sleep. The only difference for them is the civil militia for the half-elf, which will give us weapon proficiencies with spears, spikes, halberds, and glaives, and armor proficiency with light armor and shields. For the elf, rather has elven weapon training, which gives us proficiency for short sword, long sword, short bow, and long bow. For today's build, we are eyeing on the half elf because we need the proficiency for spears and pikes. We are using a lot of those for this build. For the sub race, I highly advise you go for the wood half elf. This will give us the feature fleet of foot, which will increase our move speed up to 1.5 meters. For the classes, we are eyeing on the class Barbarian. For our foundation class, this will unlock our action rage, which will give us 2 extra damage with our melee and improvised attack, and as well as throwing weapons for 10 turns. And also unlock class features such as an armor defense. While we are not wearing armor, our constitution modifier will be adding to our armored class. For the background, we are selecting from 2 backgrounds that are interesting for this build, which is the soldier and the folk hero. For the folk hero, we will get the skills of animal handling and survival, and for the soldier, which is athletics and intimidation. I will be going for the soldier because athletics and intimidation is a really useful skill to have. For the abilities, we're just focusing on 3 abilities for today, which is the strength, dexterity, and constitution. Strength will be really important because we are using melee weapons as well as throwing weapons. Dexterity is for our finesse and also our initiative, as well as dexterity saving checks. For constitution is really important because this will translate to our unarmored defense and as well as our constitution check. You can just leave around 10 wisdom for today. We are introducing another class later on for this build. Right after character creation, we will be jumping into level 2 of our Barbarian, and we are now unlocking our class feature, which is the danger sense as well as the reckless attack. For level 3, we are still focusing in a Barbarian class. This is the level that we will be unlocking our first fundamental subclass, which is the Berserker. The Berserker will be giving us the action frenzy as well as frenzied strike, and the most important thing is the enraged throw. This will allow us to pick up any items or creature and throw it to a target, dealing additional damage and knocking it prone. Still focusing on our Barbarian, we are now unlocking our new feat. We are eyeing on the feat, the Tavern Brawler. This will increase our damage of our unarmed attack, improvised weapons, or throwing weapons by adding our strength modifier into the mix. And we can also add another strength using the ability point assigned for this level. Now coming in level 5, this is gonna be really interesting because we are introducing another class to the mix in the form of the Druid. The Druid is a really powerful class aside from giving us some proficiencies with armor classes and shield, but the most important thing here is we are eyeing on unlocking a subclass for us to optimize our Lightning Barb. For the cantrips, I highly advise you just stick with the cantrips for the Druid, and that's good. Coming into level 6 and level 2 of our Druid, we are now unlocking the Circle of Spores. The Circle of Spores will be unlocking actions such as Wild Shapes, But the most important thing that we need here is the symbiotic entity. Symbiotic entity is an interesting skill. It will give us 8 temporary hit points and deal additional 1 to 6 necrotic damage while it is active. For the prepared spells, I highly advise you get Create Water because this will be really good later on our playthrough for our Lightning Barb. For level 7, we are now going back to our Barbarian class because we are eyeing on some class features such as extra attack and fast movement, which will increase our movement speed by 3 meters while we are not wearing any heavy armor. Now for level 8, this is the time that we will optimize our Lightning Barb because we are now introducing our third subclass to the mix in the form of the Fighter. Fighter is a really interesting class. Aside from giving us proficiencies in simple weapons and martial weapons, it also gives us a few proficiencies in armor classes, but we are eyeing on a few subclass feature later on the level so that we can really optimize our Lightning Barb. For the fighting style, I highly advise you go with 2-weapon fighting. 2-weapon fighting gives us the passive feature whenever we are attacking with our offhand weapon. We can add our ability modifier to the damage of that attack. Level 9, still focusing on our fighter class. We just unlocked our action feature, which is the action surge. 10, still focusing on the fighter class. We just unlocked our subclass feature, which is the final fundamental subclass that we need for the build. In the form of the Eldritch Knight, this will give us the action weapon bond. Weapon bond will ritually bind our main hand weapon so that it can't be knocked out of our hand and automatically returns whenever we throw it to the enemy. Basically, we can set any weapon into a throwable weapon and it can return to our hand whenever we throw it. For the cantrips, you can get anything that you want. I highly advise Ray of Frost or maybe Shocking Grasp. For the spells, the most effective spell that we need is Shield. For the expanded spell, you can get whatever you want. I highly advise you get maybe Featherfall. Coming into level 11, still focusing on our fighter class, we are now unlocking our new feat. We are eyeing on the feat Dual Wielder. It will give us the ability to wield 2 weapons that aren't light, and we gain +1 bonus to our armor class while we wield a melee weapon in each hand. But please remember, we can't wield 2 great swords. We can wield 2 spears, 2 tridents, or any sort of dual wielding weapon that we prefer, but not great weapons. And finally, for level 12, still focusing on our fighter class, we just unlocked another extra attack. Alright guys, I'm now going to be showing you 2 item setups for today. One item setup is for the early game and the other is for the late game build, which is Act 3. We're going to be starting with the armor and the rings. We are eyeing on the Lifebringer. It will give us life charger whenever we gain lightning charges. We also get 3 temporary hit points on top of those lightning charges. Next up is the Protectee Sparks Wall. The wearer will gain +1 bonus to our armor class and saving throw for as long as we have lightning charges. Fourth is the Sparkly Hands, which will give us the passive Conductive Strike and also the effective Transmitter. While we are imbued with lightning charges, attacks on metal constructed or foes wearing metal armor will gain advantages. And finally, for the Boots, which is the Electrified Water. Whenever we are standing on water, it will get electrified. For the rings, we are eyeing on the Sparks Wall, which will give us the passive Sparks Blocker, which will prevent us from getting electrocuted and grant resistances from lightning damage. And finally, for the rings, which is the Ring of Flinging. It will give us the passive throwing boost. The wearer will gain an additional 1d4 bonus through our throwing damage. Now guys, we are talking about the weapons. On the early game, I highly advise you get the Returning Pike, which has the passive homing weapon. Whenever we throw this weapon, it will return to us every single time. You can actually get this weapon really early. You can beeline this to the goblin camp and purchase it from the goblin there. And also you can get the Sparks Point. It gives the passive Electric Blood. Whenever the weapon deals damage using this weapon, they gain 2 lightning charges, which will activate the armors that require lightning charges for this build. You can use the Sparks Point whenever you like, but I highly advise you start with the Returning Pike until you get your points into the Fighter class, which will in turn give you the subclass Eldritch Knight for you to properly use the Sparks Point and keep throwing this to your enemy. I'll be writing in the description below all of the links to this item so that you guys can easily find these weapons that I mentioned. Now I'm going to be showing you guys the item setup for Act 3. We are actually eyeing on 4 items in Act 3 that we need, starting off with the Horns of the Berserker. This will give us the passive Seeking Blood. We will get 2 bonus attack rolls when we are attacking our enemies that have already taken damage, and the passive Bloodthirst, which whenever we are doing unarmed attack or melee attacks, we deal an extra 2 necrotic damage for as long as we don't have 100% health. Next is the Wave Mother's Robe. This will give us the passive Temporary Adjustment. We gain resistance to fire and cold damage, and the really interesting one is the Water Rejuvenation. Whenever we are standing on water surfaces, we actually heal from 1 to 4 hit points, and also it gives us the opportunity to create water. Third is the Flawed Helldusk Gloves. It gives us the passive Lesser Infernal Touch. Whenever we do a weapon attack, grants us additional 1 to 4 fire damage. Number 4 is the Caustic Band, which will give us the Malefic Excretion. Our weapon attacks will also deal 2 acid damage. Now it's time for me to talk about the weapons for Act 3 builds, which is the Trident of the Waves. The Trident of the Waves is a really interesting weapon. Aside from it gives us 9 to 17 damage, it also gives us the passive Water Collar. So whenever we are hitting an enemy, it creates a 2-meter water surface centered around the target, as well as the legendary Nyurlna. You can get this early on Act 3. It is an amazing weapon which gives the passive Zephyr Connection. This weapon will return to our hand whenever we are throwing it, and you cannot be forced to drop this weapon. And not to mention that whenever you throw this weapon, it creates an explosion of thunder damage in a 6-meter wide radius. And now I'm going to be showing you some active gameplay on how we properly use our Lightning Barb. Whenever you can, you should start the battle activating your symbiotic entity. That's going to be giving us 8 temporary hit points and an additional 1 to 6 necrotic damage. And I highly advise you start the battle at least not in 100% HP, because that will also activate the Horns of the Berserker buff, which will give us 2 necrotic damage for as long as we are not in 100%. If ever you can start on turn 1, you should start with using the Create Water to make the surface of our Lightning Barb. As you see here guys, Electrocuted Surface is now active, and the enemy really hates electrocuted surfaces, so most likely they will not be moving a lot in this turn. Now we have the chance to attack. We will always be starting with the Frenzy. So we can start dishing out some damage. So we'll be using the Nyurla first and create some lightning chaos. Gonna be attacking again. Now he's dead. Now we're gonna be moving away from the electrocuted surfaces. Now we're gonna be setting up again to the battle. We're gonna be attacking this one. He just got hit and he just got obliterated. As you see here guys, the reason that we are using 2 weapons for this build, aside from the Trident of the Waves is a really good weapon, it also gives an additional 2-meter radius water around the enemy whenever we hit it. That's going to be increasing the area of our electrocuted surfaces. So we're just going to be using this on our enemy to also increase the area of our water. As you see here, the water just increased, and it also increased the area of the electrocution for all enemies. Now we're just going to be throwing a weapon to our enemy. Got him. One is dead. And we're just gonna continue attacking with maybe a Frenzied Strike to our target. Gonna be using Action Surge and gonna be finishing this guy off. Gonna be throwing again. Gonna be attacking the opponent again, throwing our Lightning Spear. He did. Now we're gonna be moving away again. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the build and see how powerful this lightning barb can be. It is an amazing control character and can dish out disgusting amount of lightning damage to your opponents in a single turn. Can electrocute a lot of areas, especially when they are wet. It can be a really powerful asset to your team. Any questions or clarifications, please comment down below. Would love to answer all of your questions, guys, or any queries that you have. And if you guys like the video, please leave it a like. It really lets me know that you guys are enjoying my builds. Shoutouts to the people who subscribe, and I hope I earn a subscription in the future. But if I earn it today, please don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out a lot. And that's it for me. And I hope to see you soon on the next MasterBok show. Peace out. Bye, guys.